So Paul, we're here today at the Ulster Grand Prix, waiting on bikes. Well, obviously there's going to be no bikes. I feel like I'm actually at a bike race in the camper chairs. But I suppose getting back to what I'm doing this video on, and which is Skerries. You know, your family, of course, steeped in history down at the Skerries 100 in Killanane, of course. But I suppose just going back on a personal note, how did you come around to being involved in motorbike racing?
Well, I was involved from a young age, going to a lot of the races with my father.
Yeah.
And then whenever he was killed, I took a long time off motorbikes, and then I started again. Maybe I was about 16, 17, going to watch the Northwest. You know, because I was playing a lot of football at that time, and then once I started watching the bikes again, I sort of had an idea I'd like to have a go at that, and started my first season then.
And then of course, you know, huge inspiration in your two uncles doing so well on the roads, and of course Robert then on the short circuits as well. Were they a huge help, I suppose, when you were getting back into the motorbike scene?
Oh, they really were. I went to a lot of races with Robert and Joey both. Joey took me one day to Skerries, or not to Skerries, sorry, to the temple just before it started, to explain how you go about it, getting your licence and one thing and another, and he gave us a set of numbers and things like that there, you know. And then Robert, he was more hands-on. I'll get you my bike, and he had a crash at the time in Monza, and he was out of racing, so his bike was sitting in the garage, so he said, come on, we'll take you to Knott's Corner, and got a helmet off him, and I sort of went from there.
And then of course, you know, you dominated the 125 class then from an early age or whatever, and for many years. Was it always kind of 125s that interested you the most, or were you ever kind of contemplating progressing to a bigger bike?
Well, the way I had planned out didn't really work out for me. The idea was go 125s and go through British Championship to European and Grand Prix, and then move on from there. But it sort of got caught in a situation where the progression from British Championship up to the GPs didn't happen. Financial reasons, it was just really too expensive, and then even the British stuff was too expensive, so I had to come back home. Whenever I came home, I moved on to 250 and had a couple of seasons with a 600, but only did a few races in it.
You found your niche in the 125.
Yeah, that was it.
And yourself and William, of course, God rest him, had many brilliant battles in that championship as well. And you were the two kind of kingpins, I think, on the national circuit anyway.
Oh yeah, it was great. You know, it was great racing with William too, because you always knew you were safe. You know, and there's a bit of fun, and there's a wee bit of banter. You know, before and after, like
cousin rivalry.
Yeah, that was it. But at the end of the day, once the racing was, William had done anything to help me, and I did anything to help him too. You know, and the same with Michael and Gary. It was all, and Sam. You know, everybody was just there to help each other. And
a family affair.
Yeah.
And then of course your memories at Skerries, I'm sure over the years you've had a few tales down there at that cricket club. It's an awful place.
Well, believe it or not, the first year I was ever at the Skerries, I wasn't racing. I was going to do, I was still riding Clubman's Championship races that time, and I was on my way to Mandela Park, and the Skerries was always the Friday and Saturday, and Mandela was on the Sunday, so I was down, and I remember, I'm pretty sure it was, I don't remember if they went the opposite way, but I remember watching the 125 race on the Friday night, and it was Joey and Robert, and there was a bit of banter there, you know, and I don't even remember who won it, but then we set sail after that to head down. But the first year I did the Skerries, I wasn't doing road racing.
Right, okay.
And Robert had said to me, you know, if you want to go down to Skerries, it's a nice wee circuit, he says, and you know, you can even maybe get a drink or two down while you're there, you know. He says it's a great wee atmosphere, a great wee meeting. And I went down, and that was in 2003, I think it was, and I really enjoyed it. And I always said then, from then on, even if I wasn't doing roads and things, I would always try and go down to the Skerries. Yeah, I remember one year down at the Skerries, I was talking to Robert after practice, and I'd said to him about a wall behind the big long right hand corner before you go down to the hairpin. And I says, it's covered over in grass or ivy or whatever. And I says, do you ever know anything about that there? And he says, no. He says, I know nothing about any wall down there. So I says, jump in the van, we'll go down and have a look. And down he comes with me in the van, and we get out of the van, and he sort of pulled the ivy back a wee bit, and he looked at me and he says, I never knew there was a wall there. He says, and I sort of asked him, I said, well, what do you look at them? He says, look at the road. He says, I'm not really interested in what's outside of the road. He says, so that's what I've never known that was there. And there was another year at the first year I had the Aprilia. We got to Skerries, and it broke down in practice, and it was the first year nobody else has an Aprilia, and I was about half a mile away from the paddock, and I had to push it away back up to the paddock. And I got as far as the cricket club, and this guy says to me, you look tired there. He says, do you want a pint? And I says, I would love one. So he says, come on in, and we ended up at 11 o'clock that night before I got out it, you know. And I wasn't racing the next day because I had no parts for the bike, so I just sat on with him, and it was great crack.
And that's racing at Skerries.
Yeah, that's racing at Skerries.
And then of course, 2018, you announced your retirement and you went out and couldn't have written it really, went out with the championship or whatever. Was it nice to kind of finish in your own terms and just park it there and be happy with what you've achieved?
It was, because a lot of people had sort of thought it was a decision based on what happened with William that year, but really it wasn't, because if I'd won the championship the year before, I was going to finish then. So I decided I would take one more year and see how it goes, because I really wasn't wanting to go much longer. So it was really nice to go out, and I did all the short circuits that year as well, which is something I hadn't done for probably 10 years. So there's a lot of racing packed into that last year, and I quite enjoyed it now.
Sometimes they arrive, sometimes they are gone.